Hey, what's going on, guys? Here doing another pets job. Apparently this house had some foundation issues and it had a little settling, so there's a couple surface cracks going on around the house in front. I'm here in Irving, Texas. I'm gonna touch up these jobs and I'm gonna show you how. What you want to do now is just chip out all these little cracks, make them a little bit wider. All you're doing is just like a dentist. You're just picking out the stuff that, that doesn't stick right. For this, you can take this out really easily with your hand. But for the most part, you'll be taking out with the chisel and hammer, like so. And all you're really doing is just making a better surface area for the mortar to attach. You're going to clean it afterwards. You see how this just easily comes off? And all you're doing is just increasing the surface area. So that way the mortar has more bite to grab on, so that way it's easily patched. Alright, as you can see, all you have to do is just chisel it out a little bit. Try to be like around 1/4 inch or so. Knock out all the loose material, something like this, and just be taken out. Just take out a little bit. You don't have to take out a lot. Ideally, is just take out the loose stuff and knock off like around 1/4 inch. And a very important thing is that once you're done chiseling, you're supposed to wash it. The reason why you want to wash it is because the dust that accumulates from hammer and chisel is that it creates a film around the stone or the building material, and the mortar sticks to the dust and not the actual building material. So what you want to do is just do a little simple wash. Take out all those little dust particles. Garden hose will work just fine. See, just all the little dust. Not that hard. All you gotta do is just flush it. Just make sure you get it soaked in really nice and good. Alright, while it is still soaking up, you'll be mixing the mortar. The mortar I use is 3 parts sand, 1 part cement type N. You mix it really good before you add water to it, so that way there's no clumps in it. And just add a little water. Now, you can add more material, but you can't take out water. Just keep that in mind. Just keep on mixing and mixing. The reason why I use a square trowel is because it's easier to mix on a flat surface on a bucket instead of a London style trowel, which I do use, but I just use it just to fill up my grout bag. And you just keep on folding it, keep on turning it. The important thing about mixing mortar is to always make sure that it matches. Now, it's not going to be 100% all the time, because different days, different weather, different time that it was mixed. And sometimes the aging process of the mortar gets a different color. It might turn a little bit lighter. It might turn a little bit darker. So even if you have the same mason to mix it, it'll be different. But the point is just get 95%. 95%. And remember, I'm mixing a little bit liquidy because it's going to go for a grout bag. And let's check out the color. See that? Pretty decent. This is what they call red sand. So you use red sand instead of yellow sand or white sand. Make sure it matches pretty decent. And remember, this is gonna lighten up because once it's dry, the mortar is gonna get lighter than the patch. So just keep that in mind next time when you mix mortar. Alright, as I said, I'm gonna use a grout bag. These grout bags you can find easily at Home Depot or any home center you go to. Just go to the masonry department. They're around usually $6 or $7 depending on the price. You know, I always go with this simple bag. They'll last you a couple jobs. They're kind of disposable for the most part. They usually last me around 2 to 3 jobs. Then I throw them away because these tips usually they get stuck after a while and they get worn out. They're no longer useful. So I'm gonna use my trowel to fill up my bag. All I'm gonna do is just put 2 or 3 scoops and then start putting the mortar in the cracks. Alright, as you can see, it's soaked up a little bit. The water penetrated the material, so it's good and ready for when you add mortar to it. It'll be easy enough to dry and clean at the same time. So you just gotta make sure that you clean all the dust off of it. You know, you don't have to, but at the same time, when you think about it, you know, if there's a film around it, it won't have the availability for mortar to seek in and bite into the pores of the material, because all masonry is porous, and you want the cement to attach to those pores and attach to the sand. So basically, it's a tight bond, and you don't have to worry about it as much. Alright, I filled in the cracks with the grout bag, followed the crack all the way to the top, and as you can see, since the mortar had a high moisture content, you see how it's soaking into the building material, and that's what you want. You want it to soak a little bit in, so that way it has a good bite. You see a little, get up close. You see how this is dry right here? And then there's a little bit of water pulling in, and that's the cement and water pulling into those cracks and filling in those voids. Now the tool I'm going to use is an anchor bolt. You can buy the jointing tool from Home Depot if you like, but this is free. And the only thing about it is that you don't have to use proprietary stuff. This is knowledge that is passed through, and it does the same job. The only thing about it is that you just gotta do the tooling right. See that? You gotta tool it. You gotta use something that is like a piece of steel with a smooth edge. You see that? Smooth. And you just fill in and push in that mortar so that way it has good contact. And you do it throughout the entire crack. Make sure you get it nice and even, and try to sometimes blend a little bit with the rest of the dry old mortar and blend it with. You see how that blends perfectly? Gotta use your finger, use a brush, use whatever. This is artistry work. You want to blend it in. That way the patch isn't noticeable, and at the same time it's going to be looking better than it did before. Alright, it's been nicely tooled, somewhat blended in. The real blending is going to come after you brush it. So you can see now it's hardly noticeable from the wall. The only thing you can really see right now is that it's just wet in certain areas where the mortar has been applied. So it'll be good to go as soon as we brush it. And the only thing you got to wait for is that for it to fully dry. It's still kind of wet. See that? Just make sure that you get it nice and blended. Obviously the brush is going to help you a little bit more. The kind of brush that you want to use, somewhat of a stiff brush. You can use natural hair brushes, you can use plastic brushes, but just make sure you match the texture that's around the cracks that used to be the cracks. You got to match the texture of the mortar that it was before. See, it's kind of rough, and right now it's kind of smooth through the tooling. So you also got to match the texture, not only the color. Alright, let it dry a little bit. You see how now there's a little white film that's going around the edges. That's a sign that it's basically getting ready to be dried out. And what you want to do is brush it before it completely dries out. So you got to watch it a little bit, watch it dry. It doesn't take that much long because it has a low surface area for mortar to dry. You're not adding mortar all the way to inside the wall, so it would take longer if it was that way. So all you got to do is just use a simple brush. You can buy these at Home Depot. I use these also for acid washing, so it's a good tip to use these. These are fairly good brushes, and they're usually meant for detail work. And all you got to do is just brush it. Go against it, go around it. Make sure you knock off, all the extra mortar, and you're trying to blend it in at the same time. You see that? Make sure you leave your cleaning pretty decent. And also when you're done, you make sure you clean the area that you applied, because mortar will stick to anything that is porous. So alright, this is the finished product. As you can see, what crack? For the most part, the only way you really would know is if you remember where you patched it at. But for the most part, it is taken pretty well. The homeowner's happy to see the hairline crack finally fixed, and at the same time the mortar matches pretty decently. Like I said, it's not going to be 100%, but you'll get it damn well near close. And that's the thing. And once you apply the mortar, make sure you just blend it in with the other existing grout lines, so that way it's not as nearly as noticeable. All I'm gonna do now is just clean up this mess, wash it out, and you have a good one.